If there's one thing in Kirby games that improved as time went on, it's certainly the boss battles. What started as a straightforward clash against a simple tree escalated into demonic beasts and all sorts of unthinkable enemies. Their design reflects their wild rage, and although the difficulty might not mirror the excellent staging, it's hard to deny the fantastic boss fights of the franchise. Varying attacks, unpredictable changes of strategies and never-ending phases gave Kirby the reputation of having one of the best clashes in the whole genre. However, this only applies to the 2D platformer, as Kirby never explored three-dimensional environments properly and thus only relied on what was known. Until now. Kirby in the Forgotten Land moves the traditional gameplay for the first time into a fully explored 3D world and naturally introduces a whole new threat, the Beast Pack. But how well do they continue this legacy of amazing opponents, and can these animalistic beasts really shift the quality of the 2D fights into three-dimensional battle arenas? Today we're here to find that out, so let's rank all the regular bosses of Kirby in the Forgotten Land. You may be confused as to why the leader of the Beast Pack himself, Leonga, is ranked on the last place, but you have to consider this from the game's perspective. After traveling through the vast landscapes of the Forgotten Land, the game very purposefully keeps details about the story and antagonist private, as if some sort of huge storm is drawing near. This is certainly the case for the final in general, but not Leonga as well. After beating the mind-controlled King DDD and a terrifying revelation about alphalin, you encounter the leader of the Beast Pack at the top of the Forbidden Lab Discoverer, and what should have been a climactic clash with the one commanding the beasts is just a prelude to a much bigger event. Don't get me wrong, it's not like this boss battle is poorly designed, but it's not explicitly exciting either. While his character design might be intimidating, the boss design is nothing but bland. Most of his skills are just regular physical attacks, with the laser beam and claw swipes depicting the exception. How you fight this enemy is basically just same as Grymondo, and I miss the uniqueness in his battle. In the best case, a foe brings in at least one special trait that makes him or the circumstances around the staging unique in any kind of way, but sadly I cannot confirm this for Leonga. As I said, it's not about being a horrible boss, but it comes off as tedious, which is much worse in my belief. Luckily this problem is solved in the post-game, and considering this fight is very likely only an introduction to the real Leonga conflict in the post-game, it was still too basic to care. Grymondo is the first true encounter against one of the commanders of the Beast Pack. With his massive appearance and gigantic body, he certainly leaves a powerful impression and makes use of that. This monster takes his massive arms as his primary means to attack or grabs Kirby in order to squish him. But it's not only the close combat that makes this gorilla so dangerous. Whenever he feels pressured by a little pink ball near him, he jumps back, pulls enormous rocks from the ground and throws them at you. The best strategy is to stay in between his legs, dodging his stomping and avoiding the following shockwaves. As a last-ditch attempt, Grymondo starts to rotate himself, performing the perfect Donkey Kong up B, with the only drawback of getting confused after some while. Since this is the first boss of the game, it should be clear that despite looking like a gigantic threat, Grymondo is not the unstoppable monster you would expect. All of his attacks are fairly easy to dodge, and he gives you enough moments to prepare for his skills. With the ice ability, you can even freeze his body to his core, dealing massive amount of damage while slowing him down. It's a nice change of pace to finally start a Kirby game without the traditional Wispy Woods fight. Don't worry, we will get to that. You also have to take into account the little details and animation during and before the clash. Kirby runs through the mall as a giant figure swings above the building and stomping outside. The banana hill foreshadows an ape-like creature, and the mighty cry before the title drop makes his presence clear. The way how he smashes through the glasses to grab Kirby and how he tries to peer at you while fighting just adds to a believable yet basic fight. Facto fargo is the abomination of what happens if alphalin's other side is not completed and absorbs every organic life form close at hand. After beating Leonga, the creature from another universe is tired of waiting and tries to speed up the process of becoming complete again. The result is one of the most terrifying enemies in the Kirby franchise design-wise, and chases our pink hero down a hallway to achieve its goal, getting alphalin. Although the appearance is horribly intriguing for the series, the fight itself is nothing but a short chase sequence similar to Mario games, and constitutes as the bridge for the actual climax. Because of that, there are no multiple phases and all you have to do is dodging a charge attack and avoiding the thrown slime. I like how they put in copy abilities that would really help in a scenario like that, like Ranger for example, but other than that, Facto fargo is more memorable because of his design rather than the battle. If you have played at least one Kirby game in your life, you're probably aware of one of the most iconic enemies of the franchise, Wispy Woods. This simple tree with a stoic impression in his face appears in nearly every title, and sometimes it even feels like a challenge from the developer's side how they could make a new innovative Wispy Woods boss battle. However, this is not the case here, as Tropic Woods is the first three-dimensional translation of the traditional rivalry. With his main body being centered at the top of the arena, this enemy makes great use of the battlefield and throws explosive coconuts at you while breathing air in order to push Kirby back. When it gets to the second phase, Tropic Woods will even start to guard himself with a fence being pulled from the ground and lets his roots chase after Kirby. Although it can be easy to just stand before his face and attack endlessly, there are a lot of ways how to approach the boss, either attacking from a distance and watching out for the roots, or risking direct damage by getting hit by the fence or his breath, especially if you are reaching for the optional side mission of beating Tropic without a copy ability. This arena turns into a huge battlefield really fast, and just the sheer chaotic back and forth is what makes this boss such a good transition to 3D. Of course, it's still too easy to just dodge the fence and simply jump over every breath attack, so it would have been much more exciting if he would at least for once shield his whole body in order to force you to retreat. The only thing I have my problems with is how he doesn't really fit into the rest of the bosses. Being the only enemy that isn't a part of the Beast Pack, Tropic Woods isn't as interesting as all the other characters and thus stands out a little. Meta Knight is an optional boss in this game, so I think it would have been great to fight a completely new foe in this world, while Tropic Woods serves as a secret boss for everyone who discovers one of the many great hidden mysteries in the game. World 3 was the first location that didn't follow any genre conventions in terms of setting like desert, ice or water, and fully focused on the merits of an abandoned theme park. You go through each corner of this magical wonderland and get to experience this place once full of happiness during the night and day. Naturally, the boss should reflect a similar charisma, and luckily Chloroline does not disappoint in that regard. Before you even start to fight, you can already see her standing menacingly in the center of the circus tent, unguarded as if the leopard already knows she's going to win. One interesting detail about her figure reveals how Chloroline is basically the right hand of Leonga and ventured through the Forgotten Land in order to stop Kirby personally. Her rank gives her the role of an idol among the Beast Pack, which is not surprising if you see her skills. Mirroring the elegant movement of a leopard, Chloroline is able to jump to great heights and uses that ability to throw knives from far above. Of course, you should not underestimate her close combat abilities either, as each of her claw swipes is merciless and can even create small shockwaves. When feeling cornered, the right hand starts to use surprise attacks and disappears in a blink, only to appear right in front of Kirby to slash. Chloroline is a huge contrast to most of the bosses because she's not a giant wild creature and acts way more careful than most of the other commanders. What I really like is how she loses her composure after entering entering the second phase, and how she has this killer instinct in her eyes during some special attacks. In terms of difficulty, Chloroline isn't specifically hard in any way, especially with the ranger, and can be killed pretty quickly if you know her moves. Flying above every attack can sometimes feel a little too overpowered however, which is why the developers probably implemented a bonus side mission in order to prohibit you from doing so. Still, every attack feels like you can barely dodge, and all her moves are designed to miss you just by a second, making Chloroline certainly a force to reckon with. Even though King Dedede is supposed to be the Bowser of the Kirby franchise, it often feels like he became the goofball of the series. Whenever a great evil appears on the horizon of Dreamland, the lazy penguin is one of the first ones to get mind-controlled in any shape and form, and therefore rarely feels serious. Of course, sometimes he gets the chance to relive the good old rivalry, but unfortunately, these moments depict the exception rather than the rule. When Kirby was sucked into the Forgotten Land, we don't get any information of what was actually happening. Who did send the inhabitants of Dreamland into this unknown world, and what happened to well-known characters like Meta Knight? Whereas the Lonely Knight shows his skills in the Colosseum, there are no traces of what happened to King Dedede himself. After fighting many bosses and reaching a destroyed cathedral, Kirby is faced with a surprising truth. The foolish king of Dreamland he once knew turned into a beast as well, and seems to be linked to all the events happening in the Forgotten Land. It's not like Dedede is joking around when you fight him in previous games, but it's undeniable that this version is much more covered in a stern coat. His shredded royal clothing in combination with war paint on his face lets this Dedede appear way more intimidating, which even translates into his battle style. Nowadays it seems like the developers love to put whatever weapon they like into the king's hand, be it a robotic hammer or an axe, but this time Dedede will reach out to a pillar close at hand and swings it around with complete ease. The massive shockwave created by one of his attacks is visually spectacular, but still not enough to take down Kirby. After a furious fight, King Dedede proves his cunning side and plays dead, only to strike back from behind and take alphalin with him. By this point it's unclear if Dedede is actually the main villain, and the game finally knows how to take the very first rival serious again. 2 worlds later and it's finally time for revenge. Unlike in the first encounter, it seems like Dedede is possessed by a mask and uses 2 hammers for maximum attack. You quickly notice how fast his health is reduced, so it's already clear that there must be something coming. Instead of grabbing another new fancy weapon, Dedede unleashes his primal instinct, throws away his iconic hammers and starts to rampage on all 4s. It may sound strange for an enemy like Dedede, but comes off as surprisingly fitting in combination with his boar-like mask and feral clothing, not to speak of all his aggressive new moves that spread all over the arena and deal massive damage. The icing on the cake is a fantastic arrangement of the well-known masked Dedede theme, and after winning the battle, an amazing cutscene follows with probably one of the greatest Dedede moments in the series. Even though Dreamland's king was once again just a puppet of a much greater cause, I did not have the feeling of fighting a lesser version of what is still to come, and after longing for such a long time for a more intimidating, strong Dedede again, I was nothing but pleased until the very end. Since the very first introduction of alphalin in the official promotional material, every long-time Kirby fan immediately suspected the new partner character to play a bigger role in the narrative. To be more precise, many people expected him to be evil, since there's a past of some essential betrayals in the franchise. Be it the cunning Margolor or insane Marks, it's safe to say that every player should keep a healthy amount of caution when meeting a seemingly new ally. Although the Beast Pack tries to kidnap as many Waddle Dees as possible possible. It's clear they also want to capture alphalin for some mysterious reason. After all, you never see them collecting regular residents like the little hatchlings or other wildlife animal, so there has to be a deeper, more significant connection between this world and alphalin. He pretty much confirms this suspicion by not telling Kirby about his past at all, which makes this whole thing even more peculiar. It takes Kirby until the very end where he gets introduced to alphalin's other half of his original form, facto fargo. Together they result in the supposed to be ultimate life form, facto alphalis. A powerful creature that has the ability to create wormholes and connect multiple worlds with ease. It's basically the same creature that sucked in the inhabitants of Dreamland, but he didn't expect one major mistake. Kirby. In the ultimate battle, not only for Dreamland but this forgotten land as well, Kirby tries to fight off this malicious being with everything he has, even forcing him to go all out and use the power that makes Facto Alphalis so terrifying. However, it's still not enough, and after rescuing Alphalin from his other evil half, together they create their own ultimate life form and isekai Facto Alphalis to a world not even he can escape from. Before even starting the actual fight, I was straight away impressed of how terrific the character design of this final boss is. It's the perfect combination of ominous yet native and blends in among the cast of hideous Kirby bosses excellently. What I often do not like about creatures being called the ultimate life form in other games is how this statement only reflects to the power and not the actual anatomy. Being an indefinable something does not mirror the form of ultimate at all, but Facto Alphalis possesses all the traits something being ultimate needs. This is shown during the fight itself, as Alphalis consistently flies to the background, attacks with multiple close range as well as wide range skills, and is even able to heal itself if you are not fast enough. Kirby final bosses are known for having a seemingly endless repertoire of different attacks, and the same definitely goes for Alphalis. We were all curious to see how the developers would bring the traditional multi-faced final boss into a three-dimensional environment, and I think it's safe to say they did not disappoint. Even the music kinda sounds like it's fighting itself, trying to be this beautiful track of being reborn, but being played in a melody as if Alphalin still tries to free himself. However, after rescuing him, Kirby and his partner combine to one, and even though this whole sequence is fantastically staged, I think my highlight is how they used the invincibility music for the first time in the series during the climax. Still, there are some aspects I'm not quite a fan of. It's way too easy to just abuse the dodge rolling and the shield in general. I would have appreciated at least one or two attacks that simply destroy this overpowered mechanic, but the fight is luckily, especially on the first try, still very difficult. In addition, I can see the irony and amusing idea of simply running over the demonic final boss with the truck, but I was expecting something more creative with the mouthful mode. The second Planet Popstar showed up. I hoped Kirby would go all out and mouthful his own home planet, but I suppose even Kirby games have to set their limits somewhere. Whatever the case may be, this is just complaining on a high level and cannot hide the fact that Facto Alphalis is a more than worthy final boss. Meta Knight is the only optional boss battle in this list and can exclusively be fought in the Colosseum in the Waddle Dee village. Even though he plays no significant role in the story other than protecting the rebuilt town, his spirit to duel in the trial of strength is not gone and stronger than ever. Just like with Tropic Woods, this is actually the first proper Meta Knight battle in 3D, which is something I haven't noticed at all regarding how amazingly realized this fight is. It all starts with the traditional offering of a sword, which you can either deny or accept. Normally you enter this duel with an ability anyway, but the sword serves a different purpose than simply giving you a chance. If you accept the blade, Meta Knight begins to swing into the action, and if you have a sword in your hand, a short clash follows, foreshadowing what kind of trick you will be able to perform in the actual fight. Otherwise, Kirby will just simply dodge, but whatever you decide to do, there's no turning back. In classic Meta Knight fashion, his stance reflects his respect for Kirby, and he will often dodge behind you or throw out blade beams. After dealing a good amount of damage, Meta Knight retreats and starts to raise heavy boulders, similar to Kirby's style star allies and covers nearly the whole arena with his technique. By this point you are probably accustomed to the dynamic exchange of blows, but the true highlight and Easter egg unfolds if you decided to use a sword. Whenever Meta Knight starts to charge at Kirby with a very specific signal beforehand, you can clash the blades and disarm your foe as a result. Now it's up to you whether you want to take the opportunity to strike back or more deviously steal Meta Knight's iconic sword Galaxia. It actually doesn't matter though, as Meta Knight falls back to a more basic sword from old days and keeps fighting as if nothing happened. The whole fight is amazingly choreographed and makes great use of a dynamic camera shift. Because of that, it feels like you're playing a cutscene and the music only emphasizes the rivalry between these two-star warriors. Despite being an optional boss, the developers put so much care into this battle, and it's definitely a perfect conclusion to this tournament. I already said it at the beginning and I can only repeat myself. Although this is the first time fighting Meta Knight in 3D, I think it actually works much better in the third dimension, and the more Kirby games come out, the better these fights against Meta Knight seemingly get. When I first entered the cave of this mysterious creature, I had no idea what to expect. The level selection screen suggested a goofy looking beast, and all the junk, wanted posters and stuff from past worlds suggested some sort of collector with a passion for handcrafted figures. This suspicion should prove to be true, as we see multiple fake Kirbys hanging from the ceiling and an insane armadillo appearing behind us. Silly Dillo is the name of this outgoing animal, and you get immediately the feeling that this boss is different from the rest. The way he tries to catch you in his cage and shakes the poor Kirby is reminiscent of the squishing of Grymondo, but the real fight starts when Silly Dillo breaks the ground and brings the clash to the real battlefield. Here he starts to roll at you with his decorated armor in high speed, giving you barely the chance to dodge. Once after losing 2/3 of his energy, Silly Dillo uses his special talent to attack Kirby and dances with his self-made wives, just to throw them after you. Every move and every second of this boss battle forces you to keep moving, because there's never a minute to rest. It feels like Silly Dillo just bombards Kirby in an ongoing fashion, and the only real moment to strike back is when he finally falls to the ground. If you look closely at each attack, it seems like they are built up on each other and raise the difficulty naturally. The first running attacks stop after touching a wall, whereas the dance with his wives bounces off and is much more difficult to predict. But it's not necessarily the different techniques that gave Silly Dillo the top of the list. Since the very first second you encounter him, you can clearly see how wacky he is animated and how much fun the team probably had designing this boss. Everything from his movement to the facial expression screams simple, stupid fun, and I wish more Kirby enemies would be like that. Especially the scene where he presents his wife and gives her a little nudge on the nose with an innocent smile. This is just top-notch character animation. I think it would have been great to add an optional secret mouthful mode where you can use one of his wives to attack him, but other than that, Silly Dillo is the most charismatic boss in the whole game and left the best impression on me. This is my ranking of all the regular bosses from Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Let me know if you anticipated something different and write down your personal ranking. Do you want to see maybe more traditional bosses in future games again? This game did a phenomenal job with its enemies in 3D, which makes the future of the series all the more exciting.